Are we live? You tell me. Would I still be live with no viewers? That's like the chicken or the egg. What came first, the live or the viewer? Well, no, I guess it's not that. Welcome. Hit the subscribe button if you like news that is good for you. And that definition is open to interpretation. If you like news, commentary, newsmentary that is good for you, this is good for you. This isn't paid for by, this isn't brought to you by, well, it is brought to you by viewers like you. But we don't have no foundation. We don't have nobody that is restricting our content in a specific narrative. This is newsmentary that's good for you. So hit subscribe and hit the notification bell. Why? Come on, you know, because I go live every weekday. And when I go live every weekday, you need to get notified so you can join in the chat, just like my friends JM, Gen F, Koo the freestyler, which I haven't seen Koo in a while. He came across my mind this morning. So Koo, if you're watching this later, I hope you're doing all right. Corrupted, Bandito Suavecito, and a collection of other CJ. See, I didn't even mention CJ. Jesus, I am sorry, CJ. That is a cool emoji. I don't know how you got that one, but I like it. Welcome, CJ. So I was just saying, that's why you hit the notification bell. Like my good friend CJ has been joining for quite a while, and she's always up in the chat. So that's why I say, please hit the notification bell so you can join the chat. Now, Pacific Northwest in the house. And you know what? Yesterday was a good lesson for me because I forget until I see people that a lot of people are outside the states. And we're going to talk about free speech, the First Amendment, getting arrested for hurting a cop's feelings, which is hilarious. Well, I guess not if you're in the situation. When it eventually pays off, and it eventually pays you $100,000 because you hurt a cop's feeling and he made a retaliatory arrest against you, then it's hilarious. But maybe in the moment it wasn't hilarious for this dude. And again, I always put the links in the description. So if you want to read this after the live, please do. I always put that stuff in there so you can see what's happening. You know the story yourself. Maybe you catch something that I missed and you bring it up on the next live stream tomorrow. And we're going to get to that. But first, we got to crack 1340. So all you new subscribers, if you need the news that's good for you, and you do need it, that's what you're doing here. This live stream is like no other. Yeah, I get it. Philly DeFranco is probably the biggest in this genre, but number one, he's not live. Couldn't even see my thumb. That was weird. It's like an invisible thumb. Look, I have a glow thumb. Remember glowworms from the 80s? They brought those back. I don't know if they're still back. They brought Furbies back, and those things are all haunted. I believe they make them at a haunted factory. You got to have feelings to get them hurt. That is true. And do they have feelings? That is a chicken and the egg question. But Philly DeFranco brings you news commentary like 4 days a week. I'm going live 5. And we're right on his heels. We are chomping on Philly DeFranco's heels. So for everybody that's new and you need the news that's good for you, sometimes all the time broccoli is good for you. Sometimes stuff you didn't even understand is good for you. Sometimes you're like, dragon fruit, is that good for me? Yeah, it is. And you never even had it before. And I say that because this live stream is news that is good for you. I'm not saying it's good news. Sometimes we'll say it might not agree with me, but it's good. It's stimulating. So hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you can jump up in the chat just like CJ does. And let's begin. If you're outside of America, which I have to remember because we got people in Egypt, in Brazil, in South Africa. Oh, forgive me. There's a bunch more. Real life Garbage Pail Kids exist. Do you remember that movie? Oh my God. Thank you, CJ. And here's the other thing with the live. Sometimes we get a little sidetracked. Sometimes we take a detour down a fun little avenue. For those who weren't alive in the 80s, there was this thing called Garbage Pail Kids. They started as cards, even a comic book, and then there was a movie made. And it's probably one of the worst movies in the history of cinema. But it's hilarious, it's weird, it's an oddity. Just like last night I was showing my son the Ewok movies, Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor, which when I was little I loved them. He didn't really like it. Maybe the special effects weren't enough. Maybe the costumes where you can see where the Ewok's sleeve meets its hand, its mitten. But Garbage Pail Kids movie is another one. I gotta show it to him. He's probably gonna think it's horrible, but if you haven't, check it out. After the live stream, look it up. Garbage Pail Kids movie. It's something, it makes you wonder. If you weren't alive in the 80s, you go, what the fuck was going on back then? Like, really, what was happening where this was like considered premium content? And people were excited for it to come out. After it came out, not so much. So sometimes we take little detours, but that's the fun of going live. That's why I love when people join up in the chat. So let me go back to my point. We're going to talk about, this story takes place in Vermont. We're going to talk about American laws, which I know are vary drastically from the rest of the world's laws. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. The laws we're going to talk about today are disorderly conduct, which, again, I put the link in the description. Oddly enough, the only countries that Wikipedia lists, and when I Googled, said that have disorderly conduct as a charge, are America and China. So what does that tell you? When they want you to live in a police state and they need a reason to arrest you, a sort of catch-all to shut you up, they create this term called disorderly conduct. Now, essentially what that means is like your conduct is disorderly. You are creating some kind of havoc. Maybe you're making way too much noise and it's disturbing the peace. That's what you can essentially quantify this as, or you could calibrate this charge into being like, is it disturbing the peace? Like fighting, being drunk, maybe being way too loud late at night, maybe streaking through a funeral, maybe, knocking everything over at the buffet table. Whatever is going to disturb the peace in a sense that it's very disorderly and maybe you had a warning, then they charge you with disorderly conduct. Again, it's a law in China and America. I think that speaks volumes. And if you're outside the US, let me know. Do you have a similar charge? Maybe it's just not specifically called disorderly conduct. And I know of this charge. There's even a charge called mischief, which I know they have in Canada. Don't ask me how, but I know they have it there. Don't ask me how. We're not going to get into my record, okay? But I know it exists. And I wasn't aware until it happens to you. And then you're like, really? A charge is mischief? Jesus. This isn't about me, though. So here in America, we have disorderly conduct as a charge. There was a man in Vermont, which is in New England, and I forget that people don't know, sometimes people don't understand what the New England region is. It's Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. It's basically that top little corner, that northeast corner. We call it New England as opposed to Old England because that's, the original colony, colonialists. And Vermont is in the New England region. Vermont, very hippie state, very cold, beautiful summers, awesome foliage. If you want to go leaf peeping, which is, I believe, what they call them, when people go drive up to Vermont through September. Well, it's not even September anymore. Now it's like October through December. You get these immaculate views of the change in seasons. Really cool autumn pastels and pastel sunsets and these great, orange, red, brown, green, yellowish, just rad trees up there, right? And it's just mountain, wicked. If you get a moment after live, just Google a couple images of Vermont foliage, peak foliage. But that's really one of the spots. Also maple syrup from Vermont, it's just a great country. It's the country of the North. So here in Vermont, actually I'm not, here in New England, in Vermont, there was this guy who was pulled over by a state trooper. I think they have state troopers in every state, but in the New England region, we call them stadies. I just don't know if other states call them stadies. So if you hear me say statey, that just means a state cop. We call them stadies. Is that a thing elsewhere? I'm not sure. Let me know. I don't think I've heard it elsewhere, but I know here in New England, we call them stadies. So the statey pulls this guy over. And he pulls him over because he thinks that the guy flipped him off. That's not a crime, okay? I know it's scary, and I know not many people are brave enough to do that, but you could just walk around holding your middle finger up. I mean, as long as you're not, again, like going by a funeral or maybe doing it at the window of a preschool, but they wouldn't even understand that. They would probably just do it back and think it was like a way to say hi. It's such an abstract concept that this means, like something. It's so, when you really break it down and think about it, it's like the dumbest thing. It's a finger and you'd be offended. Like, I think it's kind of hilarious, but again, whatever. Neither here nor there. So this guy in Vermont gets pulled over by a statey. The guy denies. He's like, I didn't flip you off. It's not what I did. Whatever, you're sensitive or whatever he said to him. It's probably like, if that's the crime you're trying to bust, maybe we should defund your department. Because last I checked, police weren't out there trying to catch bird flippers, right? So the guy is frustrated, as probably you would be if you really didn't flip off a cop and you get pulled over by a statey, and he's like, you know why I pulled you over? And could you imagine? You're like, I don't know, I wasn't speeding. I know you didn't have the radar out. I know I wasn't speeding. I didn't miss a blinker. I didn't go through a red. Why'd you pull me over? And he's like, you flipped me off. And you're like, what? No, I didn't. Then you have to have that argument. And obviously, if this cop's pulling him over for thinking he flipped him off, maybe you shouldn't be a cop. You might not have the skin thick enough to be a officer to enforce peace. You have to provide that peace yourself when you walk into a hectic situation. You can't walk in and go, are you flipping me off? Ah! You can't do that. If you're there to enforce the law, you got to be cool, calm, and confident. Walk into that situation like, hey, everything's cool. We're all going to chill. And oftentimes you see the opposite. Neither here nor there. Just my 2 cents on this newsmentary. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. This is news that's good for you. And it's good for you in the way that broccoli might be. We just don't know. It depends on the story. Sometimes it's just good. It gets your mind muscles going, okay? So hit subscribe. We got to crack 1340. 1,340 subscribers. We are on the heels of Philly DeFranco. Philly, I'm coming for you. Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars ever. 80s drugs. Gotta love the mild stuff. That might be my... CJ, can we make that a t-shirt? 80s drugs. Gotta love the mild stuff. This is why I love going live on YouTube. Because some people out here are funnier than I am. Know a lot of people, and they come up with stuff like that. 80s drugs. Gotta love the mild stuff. CJ, when we catch up to Philly DeFranco, that will be one of our t-shirts. And I will put CJ at the bottom. Because that's... and hilarious. 80s drugs, gotta love the mild stuff. Oh my God. Thank you for that. And you know what, CJ? It just says how truthful you are, because when my son didn't like the Ewoks movies, the Caravan of Courage sucked, and I thought it was Battle for Endor. That's the one I went to put on. He was like, Dad, maybe it was cool when you were young, not when I'm young. I put on Return of the Jedi. And then he said, just shut this all off. I don't want to watch it. Actually, no. He likes Return of the Jedi. Because I'm not really a Star Wars person. So I put on Return of the Jedi, and then when Jabba comes on, I make up like his backstory. I make up all this folklore. So I'm like, you know what happens, right? Like, Jabba was a kidnapper. He stole all the kids in that village. And I went on and said, like, any little kid that was flipping his parents off, and I make up these elaborate backstories. And I think he knows it's not true, but it's also entertaining because I go deep. I go deep into the background of these fictional Star Wars characters. And if there's any Star Wars fans out there, they'd probably be immensely angry at me. But I make up a whole story about like why he got there and how he got there and what he's doing and what his little pet is. So yeah, that is one of the good ones. But thank you, CJ, for our one of our mottos here on the live stream. 80s drugs. Gotta love the mild stuff. That's so funny. All right, so anyways, this dude, imagine if you get pulled over and you're like, damn, this cop has thin skin. He's pulling me over because he thinks I flipped him off. He doesn't have it on video. I'm sure his body cam was off. Doesn't have it on video, nothing like that. And then he's like, all right, get out of here. And now that you're so pissed off he pulled you off for doing that, you mutter some swear word at him and you do flip him off. And then he pulls you over just a couple feet up the road and arrests you, which is a retaliatory arrest, right? Retaliatory arrest. You can't be doing that. And he charges you with disorderly conduct. Again, story in the description. I mean, the link to the news article we're talking about in the description. A guy in Vermont gets pulled over for allegedly giving the cop a finger. Then when he's fed up with the statey, he does give him the finger, and the statey pulls him over again and arrests him for disorderly conduct. The guy's car gets towed, which that's a fortune in itself. Spends an hour in jail, but then the ACLU in Vermont takes up the case, sues the state. The cop should be let go. Because, I mean, if you're that sensitive over a middle finger, I have bad news for you. Worse things are going to happen. And I have family that are cops, and they've told me about the worst things that happen. So if the middle finger's getting you, like, geez, my aunt would have never stopped somebody for a middle. Anyways, if the middle finger's, upsetting you, find a new career. All right, buddy, we know you like the power. That's obvious because he's trying to arrest people for the middle finger. But that's the other thing. The middle finger is not disorderly conduct. That's not erupting or disturbing the peace in any other way. In fact, what the case was based on is this cop violated his First Amendment's rights, freedom of speech. And you might not like it, but flipping people off is your ability to express your opinion in public. That's essentially what freedom of speech is. Flipping people off is not hate speech. It's not, threatening speech towards a specific group of people. Flipping people off, just saying a cuss word, is not illegal. And this has happened multiple times in America, which is amazing that cops still think you can arrest somebody for calling them a bad word or flipping them off. That's not. Isn't this the land of the free? So remember that. Remember that. Disorderly conduct is not flipping somebody off. Their feelings might be hurt, yes. They might, maybe, they don't understand what the middle finger is. Then good for them. They should just pretend like they don't know what it is. But irregardless of hurting someone's feelings, you can't arrest somebody because you felt insulted or disrespected, which cops always say that. But here's the thing. The law isn't about respect. The law is clear cut. It's not about whether or not you feel respected or not. There's no law saying you can't flip people off. I mean, that's probably coming next. But this guy won $100,000 from the state of Vermont. The ACLU won $75,000. And I think this is a clear-cut lesson for police officers. If you're so sensitive that the middle finger is making you pull people over twice and arrest them and cause all sorts of issues for them. Like, at this point, the cop was just being a bully, right? Because the guy's got to be in jail for an hour, explain that to whatever, ripple effects that has. Then he has to try to get his car out of the impound, which is so expensive, all for the cop getting his feelings hurt. That cop should be absolutely fired, never hired again. Go to a job where, maybe you should be like a playground officer, because that way if kids are flipping other kids off, you have some authority. You should be like, hey, you can't do that on school grounds. There you go. You should be a playground officer. That's a great job for you. That way, your sense of entitlement will match all the children's. But I wanted to bring this to you because it's very important, and it was also very interesting for me to learn that disorderly conduct is only a charge in America and China. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm always open to being wrong. If the country you live in has something that's the similar kind of charge but called something different, please let me know. And thank you, CJ, for giving me the line of the day, 80s drugs. Gotta love the mild stuff. If drugs had cigarette slogans, that would be one of them. Oh my God, that is so funny. And CJ, we're going to make that into a t-shirt one day. Oh, but I need you to hit subscribe. If you haven't, I go live every weekday. Please hit subscribe. We're cracking 1340. We are going to crack 1340 this week. I know it. and we are nipping at the heels of Philly DeFranco, who is probably the #1 news commentary person on YouTube, but he don't go live. I do. I bring you stuff, bam, when it's breaking. So please hit subscribe, and to everybody who has subscribed, thank you so much. My new subscribers, my God, I'm so happy you're here. And to everybody who has been a subscriber for a long time and keeps feeding me some of the funniest lines of all time, like CJ, I thank you so much. 80s drugs, gotta love the mild stuff. Oh my God. Oh my God, that is so funny. I hope you enjoy that line that CJ blessed us with as much as I did. And we gotta think of what should be the emblem, CJ. When we put it on a t-shirt, it's gotta have some kind of something. Like Jabba the Hutt smoking his pipe. Did he smoke a pipe? We got to think of something for that, CJ. Oh, we probably can't be copywritten content. So, CJ, that's our homework. Let's think of something for the slogan. And patent pending, and no YouTubers steal that. You see that anywhere else on YouTube, that is CJ's property. 80s drugs, gotta love the mild stuff. It's so funny. My God, I love it. Thank you, CJ. Thank you. All right, guys. I get a piece. I will see you tomorrow. If I might actually go live a little bit later because there were more news stories, but this one was just so hilarious. Is that the word? My hubs watches you with me. Gotta make him follow. Yes, please have him subscribe and tell him to please. We gotta think of something that can be the photo underneath 80s drugs. Gotta love the mild stuff. It's so funny. My God. It's so funny. And tell your husband I said what's up. Thank you guys for watching. 80s drugs. Gotta love. It reminds me of like the Newport magazine ads. They're like smooth. 80s drugs. Gotta. All right. I'm having too much fun with this. All right. Thank you guys so much. Please hit subscribe, the notification bell, and that thumbs up button. Don't forget about that. Just smash everything. Just smash everything. Once you're done, just hit the whole thing and just see what comes up. It's like roulette. Russian roulette with the buttons. Please go live later. I will try to. I have a little bit of time later. So yeah, maybe I'll jump. And that's why I say, for everybody who's maybe new, hasn't hit subscribe yet, and you're about to, that's why I say hit the notification bell, because sometimes I do go live twice. I don't just go live every weekday. Sometimes I'll double up. So maybe we'll go live later. We'll have some fun. We'll talk about some other stuff. I'm not going to mention it right now because, again, I can't promise it, but I would like to go live later. So, CJ, that's why you hit the notification bell. I know that. To everybody else, peace.